that you see are in the document that's uploaded on Navigator. And David, did you want to go ahead and I'll stop sharing and you can talk a little bit about the unit planning tool?
Yeah, sure can. Let me share my screen here. There we go. Okay, hopefully you guys are seeing a screen that is a coherence flow chart and then that document. Is that what you're saying?
Yep, we sure are.
Okay, awesome. What this is, let me give you a little bit of the history about this thing. One of the big pushes with TNTP is the idea of using learning intentions and success criteria. And it kind of started about a year and a half ago, and then COVID hit, and it kind of disappeared a little bit, which was interesting. But it's kind of coming back now. But anyway, for me, there was a huge disconnect, because the way that we started with success criteria was with the idea that a success criteria was kind of what our performance expectations were, what the kids could do once you were done teaching and so on. And that's what my head was wrapped around. With a new interpretation of it, it's better described as a roadmap or the step-by-step process that kids will go through in order to get to the end. And it makes perfect sense, the idea of learning being progressional and one thing building on another. So what I did was I thought, okay, we've had schools now, is coming back up in faculty meetings and so on. And the idea of learning intentions, you guys are really pretty comfortable with. It's along the same lines as learning targets, learning outcomes, learning objectives, whatnot, a matter of semantics. But it really is one of those things where different administrators will have different interpretations as far as, should it be daily, should it be weekly, should it be whatever. And I'm not going to get into that battle. For me, it's a much bigger picture. And so what I did when I developed this document was thought, okay, we're going to look at it from a chapter perspective. And essentially that's going to be our smaller focus outside the big chapter. All right. So with this document, and I've got examples of these for you guys now. They are listed on the Navigator, and I just put them in the miscellaneous section for each grade level. For 6th grade, I've got 2 units in there, I think 5 and 6. 7th grade, there's 1 unit. 8th grade, there's 2 units. If you're doing a unit that there is one there for and you want some help with it, just let me know. I've been trying to get at least one done for every single grade level K-8 as examples. But with this document, it really is, it's a unit planning document that will allow you to see the big picture for the whole unit in a very compacted area. It takes about an hour to do one of these, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depending on how you want to modify it. But with me, the place that I always start is down at the very, very bottom of the document with the standards. And the reason I do that is because one of my battles is that nobody understands science standards except for science teachers. And we can consistently have administrators coming in asking you, what standard are you teaching today? We don't work like that. We teach standards. Well, one, we don't have standards. We have performance expectations. So they don't understand that difference. But with a performance expectation, it really is what the kids should be able to do once the teaching is done. We don't teach them as a standalone. They're all kind of combined in together, and they're kind of morphed here and there and so on. So it really is one of those things that for an administrator to understand it, we're not like other areas. We don't teach one standard a day. It doesn't work that way. You know, 7th grade, we've got what, 20 performance expectations for the year. So we don't teach one every 6 days. They essentially go all throughout the year. So you go ahead, you list those down there. Just try to set your head around or wrap your head around what you're doing in the unit. And in this particular unit, it's the natural select or the evolutionary history unit from 8th grade. I just pulled it up because is what was there. And then I go all the way back to the top and start with chapter 1. And the primary location for the information is on those coherence flowcharts. And I love those things. It makes it so easy to wrap your head around it. So in this particular example, we're looking at the first learning intention. I get those directly from the investigation questions. The investigation questions on the coherence chart or coherence flowchart. Where in the museum does the new fossil, or I'm sorry, why do different species share different or share similar structures? You just rephrase that, okay? And I'm learning to explain why different species have or share similar structures. You can explain, you can describe, you can communicate. You choose what's good for you and your kids. It's not a right or wrong. It is very much a what works for you. And one of the things about these is these are tools. They're not required. You don't have to do them. They're not, it's not that. It's a template to allow you to modify that what works for you or your administrative team. I know I've worked with one school already. Their administrators wanted one thing. I shared this with them, and their administrative team said, "Oh, okay, we'll do this." But they added a couple things different, but it still works well. And it does get those success criteria up there. And we've got, with some teachers I shared it with, is they're sharing these with the kids and having the kids complete them to monitor the learning. So we've got our learning intention, then we go to the success criteria, which essentially is the step-by-step progression that their kids are going through. In this case, they're going to examine body structure of the different species and group species based on similarities, okay? Those are coming directly from the evidence sources and reflection opportunities off that flow chart. So essentially, you copy, you paste, and then you format it so it looks pretty to you. And that's probably the thing that takes the longest, in all honesty. An example, like if you look at the second one here, when you look at that second evidence piece, it just says, read how you're like a blue whale. Well, to me, that's not quite descriptive enough, and I wouldn't be comfortable sharing that with a kid. So I went into the lesson and asked them, and rephrased it, said, okay, you're going to read and annotate, how are you like a blue whale, to find evidence about how the similarities between whales and human body structures provide evidence, yada, yada, yada. So you rephrase it to give a little bit better description on what the kids are doing. And that way they know exactly what they're supposed to do, what they've got to achieve in order to say, okay, that step is done to get into the point where I can do that learning intention. And I just go all the way down through the chapter or with those. The last part comes from the application. That's typically the last chapter. And I know last year some people were skipping those last chapters. Those are key. That's really what brings the learning home for the kids. That's the thing that really pushes them beyond just what the blood and guts were of the chapters, that application and extension part. So, if you've got time, by all means, be doing the final chapters. The next column that you're going to see are the key concepts. And I include those just because those are important. Those are the key concepts. And from a kid point of view and from a teacher point of view, it kind of gives you a focus. And then the last section are going to be the progress builds. I just copy and paste those from the Amplify platform. The progress builds, my dog is going to go nuts here in a minute. There's the dog. The progress builds really do allow us to determine what level the kids are at. And I'm starting to get questions right now about testing in the spring, and we don't have an answer to it. But that's kind of what you're looking at. Whereas is a kid at a level 1, level 2, or level 3, that's where that information comes from that formative standpoint. That first progress level, they can do that. That's where they are. And then you go into the second chapter, well, that's that second progress build, and so on and so forth. On that second chapter, I've got 2 investigation questions, so I've kind of got 2 sections to it, but it's all within that same progress build. And the same thing goes down for 3 and so on. Where it does get a little weird is the very last success criteria. I've taken the 3D statement for the chapter. So I probably ought to say, okay, this, in this case, I split it. Those two are kind of not activities that you're doing, but things that kids could do after they've done everything else. It's almost a compilation of the whole chapter. So this really lays out for you very, very quickly and very easily what the expectations are. And it kind of, for me, it was an aha moment. I'll be real honest with you. In the past, I did struggle with the idea of standards not being readily identified. But the first document I was tinkering on with these, I went through this, put the performance expectations up there and went, holy crap. It really does work the way it's supposed to work. You know, no one understands that outside the science world, but it really is. We're going to teach these kids all this sense-making process and procedure so that when they're done, they should be able to do that. And it is set up that it'll do it. So I'll get these posted up there for you guys. By all means, feel free to make recommendations looking or to change it, to modify it. You can do that for yourself and for your school, whatever you want to do. We'll have these I've got them posted on the Navigator in the miscellaneous section. I'll be adding additional ones as I get to them. If you get to one before I do and you want to share it with me, maybe I can post that one and it'll save me some time. Because remember, I've got to do K through 8 and however many units there are in each year. So it's a lot. But I tried to get ones up there that were timely for you now. So without further ado, questions from you guys on that?
David, I was just thinking, I know that you said Hannah had tried doing one, and you might just get her to talk about if going through that process was helpful or how long it took her or something.
I actually was just sending a message. I couldn't remember if I had sent him the Earth, Moon, Sun one or not. And then the message accidentally went to Beth. But I mean, it was simple. It didn't take me that long. Once David showed me how to do it and where he got all the information, I mean, it's really just copy and pasting. And there's not a whole lot to it that you really have to edit. I mean, it helps solidify it and just make it more manageable for us. I introduced it to our admin, but haven't heard back from if that's the one we can use. They were putting together some sort of cookie cutter one that we would all have to use. But like I explained for science, you know, the way they do it for all the other subjects just doesn't work for us. So I'm hoping they'll eventually look at it and give us some feedback and let us use that for them as well.
I tell you, a document like this may help kind of clarify to folks that the science performance expectations are not the same as a traditional standard. Whereas with math and reading and writing, you've got very distinct things you're doing that day. Whereas with ours, because they're three-dimensional and two of the dimensions are interchangeable with other ideas, it's not that succinct statement. So this may help them understand a little bit better. I know with my directors, they were very positive with it, but they agreed. It's like, wow, it's a little complicated on the science stuff. And I said, yeah, it is. And so that's what we're dealing with. But all in all, it's out there for you to use if you want. If you don't want to use it, by all means, you don't have to. I'm not going to come and ask for it.
I have to say, I loved this format. And I have only done, of course, the one unit. Just being overwhelmed. I worked on it a little while and I was complaining about all the typing, and my husband goes, can't you copy and paste? And I was like, oh my gosh. Thank goodness I wasn't very far into it and I started doing that. But I loved the format of this. It really helped me organize it and wrap my head around it. Looking at the two documents and kind of getting that big picture before you really even get into the topic on a new topic that I hadn't taught last year. That was very helpful.
Marlena and I really enjoyed seeing your email when it came out, David, because this has like been a huge, like we've had so many faculty meetings and PDs at Tates Creek about writing learning intentions and success criteria. And we noticed like back in February last year during our first, like, oh, like what if we use the key concept and like then use this and like this, it's all in the coherence flow chart. So we're like, oh yes, we're doing it correctly.
Well, and it really is, Kathleen, it's not a matter of right and wrong. There's so many different interpretations. It really is kind of what your administrator is wanting you to do, and then taking that and saying, okay, what do I already have? It's just like you said, I was in a lot of meetings where they're like, you need to develop these success criteria. I'm like, why do I need to develop them if they're already there? It's hard. Landon, you have your hand up. You're on mute or something.
Yeah, we had a meeting with our principal today. It was just like a conference of some sort of a winter conference. And so one of the things that we were discussing were the learning intentions and success criteria. So he's like, how is it going with it? And we were like, oh, it's good. We've been using Amplify's flow charts, for a while now, since you've been requiring us to have this. And then we told him about your email, and we're like, oh, and then we just saw Mr. Helm's email, and it just like kind of gave us a little bit of confidence in what we've been doing. And so he kind of disagrees with your email, but at the same time, he said that our learning intentions and success criteria were excellent. So we're not really sure what. We're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. We're
doing what you told us to do, but he's like, I don't agree with how he did it, but keep your things are excellent. So we're like, okay.
Okay, if you ever figure out what he's not agreeing with, just share it with me and we can try to modify it.
He emphasized something about chapters.
Yes, it was the chapter.
He kept referring back to, you don't do that with chapters. You don't break learning intentions and success criteria down into chapters, or you don't make them for chapters, or some. We could not figure it out.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, it may be with the learning intentions they want them to be smaller chunks, which I understand that.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at some of the bigger chapters, you break those down. But those success criteria, those really are step by step by step. So
it makes sense to Marlena and I. I think maybe he wants the learning intention to be broader, and then the success criteria are specific for the content that we're teaching. I don't know.
Right. But like, it's not too broad, it's not too narrow, it's perfect, it's excellent, but it's not right. And we're like, it just doesn't make
But then he's like, yours are great. I love yours. Yours are perfect examples about what to do. And we're like, we just told you we did exactly what we've been doing, what Helm just told us to do. And now you're telling us not to do what he's doing, but to keep doing what we're doing.
whatever works.
I did one for our unit. And as I was going through it, it was making a lot of sense to me to see it. And then we were the same way, like we were getting dinged, like all the walkthroughs and stuff. It's like, this is not what we're looking for, blah, blah, blah. So David and I sat down and he showed me, and then I shared it with Kelly and Jess. And for me, seeing too the progress builds, especially like someone mentioned earlier, if you've not taught a unit, for me, it was really helpful because I didn't feel like I was treading water, just trying to keep up above the kids, ahead of the kids to see it. And then it also was helpful with the project or with the progress builds to see, because sometimes at the assessments at the end, I'll get a kid that'll get like 2s and 3s, but then they didn't get progress build 1. So I'm like, okay, what did I not do correctly? Or where is the disconnect here that they were missing those questions and concepts? Because really the way it's laid out, they really should know this to do the next thing and then the next thing. So for me, it really helped to lay that out. And then they were really focused, like our administrator was like, what are your activities? What are your learning activities to do this? So for us, it just made it easy then to put in whether it was a sim or word relationship or whatever it was to do that. So It really was just like a nice, easy snapshot. And Beth, it does work so much better just cutting and pasting.
Like I said, at least I figured that out early.
No doubt.
I hadn't done much of it yet.
Now, as you guys work with those things, if you've got feedback for me and we need to, or you want to make modifications, by all means do. This is not a right or wrong. This is something that I came up with after getting feedback from teachers of what they were struggling with. Shared it with my directors. They loved it. But I never got an official, this is the way we'll do it kind of thing. So I just went ahead and did them anyway. And I'll post them up there as examples as tools. And we'll leave it at that. It's a tool to get you guys started and to use in any way that you see fit, or not use it all. Your call.
I really appreciate it, because oftentimes when I'm trying to explain how science is different, we get pushback. But when you say, well, David Helm gave us this, we're all good.
I don't know if that carries much weight, but okay. I appreciate it.
Hey, if it works like the same, like, because to them, it's like, we got it from the district, so it has to be right.
No, the district. Love it.
I know it's silly, but hey, if it gets my check boxes on the walkthroughs, I'm good.
Well, that's the problem with the walkthroughs. But in all honesty, it does clarify for them kind of the difference between a performance expectation and a standard. That we don't teach that specific performance expectation, because they may not get asked that. They may ask it, they'll get the content part of it, but rather than asking questions, they're analyzing data about it, or they're designing an experiment. So there's so many variations. And I figured up last night that if we took all of our standards that were assessed on, and I think there are 50, and there are 56 variations of each one, it's just over 2,500 different standards that we would have to assess, which that's not possible. That's not realistic. So is what it is. We're good. Okay, Pat, I think you're good.
Other things that are new, and I don't know, some of you I think may have seen some of them, but maybe not others. There are unit orientation videos out for some units, and we can add more if those are helpful. If you taught it last year, it might be that, it's not necessary for you to watch, but those unit orientation videos are on the Fayette County Teaching and Learning YouTube channel. And I think I've got, let's see, there we go. I'm trying to talk and drop a link in the chat at the same time, and that's not going so well for me, as you can see. There we go. That gets you to the Amplify playlist, that link there. Also, we did planning and teaching with remote resources videos for one unit of yours that are on there that were intended to be something that would show how you could combine using the remote resources with some of the supports of the platform if you were wanting to do that, looking at the differentiation briefs on the platform lessons and some different things like that. So there are the unit orientation videos and planning the resources videos. Also, there's a planning tool that we developed if you are combining remote resources with platform supports. And on your grade level navigator pages, there's a blank form of that, and then one that is a sample that's filled out for the same unit as the video there. So anyway, if you guys would like to share what's going well for you, what are you finding as working with your kids and or challenges, we'll kind of turn it over to you to share some things. And again, anything that we can do to help you, please let us know what it is as far as putting together any kind of asynchronous supports or like David's unit planning format, things like that. So.
Don't be shy of this, you guys. This is one part that is really valuable to me because you guys are just trying so many different new things. Like, whether it's a Pear Deck application or using Cami or, a way to get kids more engaged in breakout rooms and so on. So if you've done anything that you might think is like, well, that's not too neat, but works well, now's the time.
I'll share. So I started using Pear Deck this semester. I know some people were using it last semester and I just was slow on the uptake. But I really like putting the Pear Deck questions that match up with the discussion questions from the at-home, like the at-home slides. So I'm not having to really recreate new stuff. I'm just using the Amplify at-home slideshow, but then I'm just adding in the Pear Deck like questions to get that feedback from the kids. And so I was using it, like I was using those questions in the chat, but I was not getting responses from everybody. And it was hard to kind of keep track in the chat of who was responding and who wasn't, and what, like being able to go back and look at that information later and figuring out, who knows what they're talking about and who's totally lost. Is a lot easier to find in Pear Deck because I can see how many people are responding. I can figure out real quick, like that person hasn't answered the last 3 questions. They're probably not there. I probably need to text their mom and tell them to wake them up. And so that, okay, I don't really text them. Jen Cook does. She does parents and tell them and has them wake their kids up. I don't have enough like brain capacity to handle all of that at the same time. But I've really liked it, and it hasn't seemed to be that much extra work to implement it. So like it's not a whole lot of kind of extra, but I feel like I'm getting a lot of good feedback, formative, like I know where the kids are better, and I know which kids are with me and which kids are totally lost a lot faster. So there's my plug to use Pear Deck if you haven't already.
So I think that's one of the hardest things is to get any formative assessment data in real time, because you're not able to get it through discussion as easily without, as soon as a student says something, then everybody else has heard their answer and it's hard getting their original thoughts. So
Katie,
thanks.
when you use Pear Deck with your students, are you having them submit their work on Amplify and then come back to Pear Deck and then go back to Amplify? How are they doing that? Because that's been my concern with using Pear Deck, too many flipping back and forth.
We've been using the like Google Sheets. So they still do have to flip between Canvas and Pear Deck. And so, but I've most of the time it's pretty structured that we work on the assignment for a while, and then like there'll be some discussion questions about the assignment, and then they go back. Like there's not as much flipping, I think, just because the questions seem to be kind of stacked together. So it's like, okay, we're in Pear Deck for a while. We're going to answer 2 or 3 questions in Pear Deck as discussion, and then we're going to go and work on this assignment. Or I'll get I get the kind of before we try it, what do you think? And then after we try it, what do you think? Kind of ideas. So there is some flipping, and my 6th grade general class struggles a little bit more. But my 7th graders don't seem to have the problem of flipping back and forth as much as my 6th grade.
I
also.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine. No, that was, I use Pear Deck and I love it. And I really like the feedback and enables and like how you can build other responses in there based on what people write. But that was my worry. And I resisted using it for like September and October because I thought there'd be too much technology. And I teach 6th grade and they're already like confused. But after they kind of got used to Amplify, then once I added Pear Deck, it wasn't like everything was new. The slides, they'll actually show, like in the slideshow, the Amplify screen that they have to submit the work on Amplify. So when I get to that, I'm trying to train the kids, like once we get to this screen, it means you're going to do it in Amplify. So they can learn it. It just, they require responses or directions, but yeah.
I responded to Jessica in the chat. I like Nearpod much better, but I don't have a Nearpod account. So I can only use Nearpods that other people put together and then share with me. So.
And Marlena and I were using Nearpod at first. We did that in the first semester, but then I got a notification that if you didn't have a Nearpod subscription, they were doing something where they were going to stop the Google Slides integration unless you had a paid account. So we swapped over to Pear Deck so that when they finally made that switch, it wasn't like a huge jump in the middle of a semester. It was just, okay, from January on, we're going to be using Pear Deck because we have that subscription.
And I find Pear Deck much easier to use, honestly. And yeah, like everything that was said before about it, about gathering data and formative assessment. Sorry about the dog. It's just so much easier to me on Pear Deck. And it's easier to integrate the Amplify slides into it, the links, to do the discussion questions where the kids are, doing multiple choice or drag and drop, or I just like it much better, actually.
So I made a template at before school started. I worked with, I'm trying to think of who at the district level, but anyway, I made some templates for doing interactive lessons in Google Slides, and I made all of those Pear Decks. But like some of you were talking about flipping between the Amplify platform and Pear Deck, you can, like, I use live links. So my kids don't actually submit very much work in Amplify other than assessments, but they constantly use the sim. And so any link that they need, I just put the link or the video link into my Pear Deck, and it minimizes the slides. Like, I was looking today, it made me dizzy to see like the remote lesson was like 44 slides for one of the lessons, and like that's not remotely feasible to get through. But I'm finding that by using Pear Deck and using it as a link for all of the resources they need for a particular activity, like I'm doing like 10 slides and it's taking the whole class period, and they're like, when they go into breakout rooms and link to their sim, and I put the chart that they're going to copy in their physical notebook, because I am having them doing, I experimented with I thought about the idea of an interactive notebook, but the amount of screen time and flipping back and forth is a lot for kids. So being able to do a physical data table while they're screen sharing and doing the sim has worked really well for my kids. And then they just take a picture. Like, that's what they turn into me on Canvas. Instead of doing it on Amplify, is they take a picture of their notebook page and just submit that in Canvas. And I mean, at this point, like, I'm really just looking for, we talk about the discussion questions afterwards. The purpose of the data table is just to make sure that they, know how to make a data table and that they're participating. And that's really increased my discussion level too. Because they'll have all of their resources and the task listed out. And then they may have some discussion questions that they do at the end that are Pear Deck questions. And that's worked really well for me.
Patty, since you asked, I'm just going to put it in there because it's my same thing. We've used Pear Deck. I love Pear Deck. What I put in there, that link that's on there, Bryson Harvey, that's for him, because if you guys have paraeducators in your room or another teacher, that's a way that you could collaborate, because I feel like that was one of the things that I saw on Nearpod is there was a collaboration board. So those instructions are on there. And I love all the at-home resources. The only thing that I'm still missing, and it goes with assessment, I'm having a very difficult time with my kids that are not on 7th grade level. My special ed kids and my kids that need modification, when they were in the classroom and we were doing Amplify face-to-face, it was, and we've talked about this with the assessments, with the on-the-fly assessments, to try and get the data that we need. My special ed kids and my kids on 504 plans are taking 4 class periods to do an 18 multiple choice question test, because the only way some of my kids can take this test, because I don't necessarily have the reader they need, is for me to read the test on Screencastify, upload it to Edpuzzle, put the questions on Edpuzzle so that they have the reader that they need. So I appreciate wholeheartedly all the at-home resources. And now that I'm seeing the way that Amplify can push stuff out, now what I'm expecting is for them to address our kids with that have lower level learning styles, because I love discourse, I love graphing, I love all the hands-on stuff, but we are not servicing the needs of a lot of the kids that I've got, because the weird combination that we've got, and I know a lot of you all have this, is so on top of some of the IEP kids that we have, those kids are also ELL kids, or they're kids that have been released from English proficiency. So their reading ability is already, their understanding of basic vocabulary compared to high level science vocabulary. And so what we have been doing is we have to go back and edit it, and we have to go back and retype the article. And I know that this is something that, yeah, Tara, they can use the Amplify reader, but I have kids that are, the low English speaking, that it doesn't work for them. And it's one of those things where it's not just one thing, it's overall. I need them to start pushing towards some modifications. And I know that we keep asking this, and Patty, I know that I keep telling you this every time, but that's going to be the soapbox that I'm going to die on for these kids, because if we are paying this much money for it, then it needs to service all of our kids. And I feel like it's servicing a very large chunk of our kids, and the kids that are able to do it are able to do it. And like Heather said, I also have kids that have a huge issue with she sounds like a robot, which is the other reason why I Screencastify myself reading all of the articles and doing that stuff, oh, here's what this is. So there's lots of really good things in place. It's just that now that we can see how fast they can push stuff out, because that was a thing, oh, we're working on it. They've got the manpower. Now I need to see them do it, because they have done surprisingly well with all the resources that we have, but now I need to see them address our lower level learners and give us more differentiation than use the extension for your gifted kids. That's great. I got those kids taken care of. I'm good. We need help with modifications for lower level readers, and even on like the Sims. So we just did, finish metabolism. The instructions on the Sims for some of our kids, like rather than have them walk through it, again, we Screencastified videos so that they could just click on it and look at it, because some of our kids were getting lost in the Sim, which that's not the point of the Sim. The Sim is so they can see it. So we took that part of it away. So those are just my 2 cents. I love Pear Deck. I haven't worked with Nearpod. Yeah, so that's all I have to say.
Kind of that message continues to get to them. I will be real honest with you. They have been all hands on deck with the remote resources this year. And they're going through a tremendous growth right now just to service the amount that they have out there. I think once the pandemic stuff slows down a little bit for them, I got a sneaky suspicion that that's probably very much on their forefront, because they hear that a lot. I mean, it's not a Fayette County thing. It's an everywhere thing.
And I will say,
and the other thing I want to
I didn't mean to interrupt, but in talking to them at the workshop a lot, in February before the pandemic, like I was like in my brain, like that was right before the pandemic, going to the workshop in Kansas City. And I think that the designers of the Amplify curriculum are very cognizant, and it was brought up many, many times that the weak point is hitting struggling learners and also gifted learners. Like it's a great curriculum that hits the middle of the road, but there needs to be more resources for struggling learners and our kids that are at the high performance end too.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to bring up was, does anybody know if the district has a license for CAMI? It is listed on the resources in the science section on Navigator. It's where you can go on Navigator, go to the resources section, and CAMI is there.
I signed up with my school email and it says, congratulations, you have a free trial. It'll end in 90 days.
Interesting. Okay, let me follow up on that with them.
There's lots of issues with some of those because we're also supposed to have brain pop, but for some of the people it's working and for some of them it's not.
Yeah, brain pop does not work with Canvas integration at all.
Well, even
That's
just
a
getting
nightmare.
on, like even if we give the kids a link, like some of them, my kid, like my own personal child, he has a teacher account.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, brain pop's cute. And it's great for the kids who need a bump up. But as far as the levels, yeah, let's say it's cute.
We were looking at it for grade recovery.
Yeah.
I use Brain Pop for like extra credit and test review. So like, I'll send out, here's 4 Brain Pop videos of stuff we've talked about this unit,
Hey,
just to kind of. We have an account though. There's a lot of good upper level thinking in the activities on Brain Pop, like Sortify and the map making thing. And I mean, there are things I don't like the videos on Brain Pop, but I think some of the map making and Sortify things on Brain Pop are pretty stout. I mean,
we have a school account, so I don't know if the district, like if that's a school by like.
Yeah, you have to have your actual, like have a class.
And then the educators count. Yeah. Like I have an educators count under my school account, but our school I know our school pays for it.
Yeah. So some of those,
up to this
I think the map making and the Sortify are really strong and they're challenging.
The YouTube channel like Crash Course and Crash Course Junior, I like, but I don't think there's like a happy medium for middle school. Like Crash Course is definitely like high school biology, physics, and chemistry. And then the Crash Course Junior is elementary. And I was just like, well, one goes over your head and the other one, you're like, this is for little kids. And then you check out.
I had a question related to 8th grade science. I teach at Winburn and I'm new to the district this year. We are currently on natural selection and the at-home resources are not ready for that. I did reach out to them and just ask if there was anything available and they said not until February 20th. So I was just wondering, I'm sure the answer is probably no, but I thought it was worth an ask. Is there anything the district has on natural selection to help us with at home, or else I'll just continue making my lessons?
On that, Jenny, it would be just pulling from the platform materials that are out there. The slides and PowerPoints are there. They're on the platform already. Those weren't at-home type stuff, so that should be there for you.
No, are they? I don't think there's slides for natural selection.
Not yet, because slides are new for middle school this year, and they're
I
rotating
was,
out.
Jenny, or whoever was asking, I was able to find some on the Facebook Amplify page on Facebook. Somebody had shared some, and I've been adapting those. They take some adaptation on my part, but I adapt Amplify's also, and so it gave me a base to start. I just did a search in Amplify's Facebook page, and then I think it was somewhere in the comments maybe that I found a link to it. And I'll say one thing that was helpful for me, and this probably could be used for other units, but for the natural selection unit in particular, building the histograms or bar graphs, because some of their histograms aren't actually histograms, but that's another topic. Where they're supposed to use the Linkit cubes to build them in groups and things like that. I didn't have a great idea for how to do that at first. And I tossed it out to the Facebook page and people were like, well, when you find something, let me know. There wasn't a whole lot there. What I ended up doing for those assignments was I used Google Jamboard, which I had never used before. I'm like behind on every single type of technology. But the thing I really liked about using Jamboard was that it allowed me, if the kids shared their Jamboard with me, I'm thinking the first building histogram activity, I can't remember which lesson it is, but they get 4 histograms that they're supposed to build with the little Linkit cubes in groups. Well, I assigned them in groups of 4. I said, create a Jamboard, share it with me. And then each person on the team can do one of the 4 graphs, and then you critique each other's graphs and adjust them. But the beauty of it was I sat in the main room. They had shared all their Jamboards. I had them all up as tabs, and I'd click on different tabs and I could see them working live on them all. It kept me from having to go into breakout rooms and leave kids who are trying to get back into Zoom, or you're helping this one breakout room, but the other rooms aren't getting any help. And I could go in and I'd actually type a little comment. I like how you did this one. So I had these tabs that I was opening and closing on it, and it worked really well. And then at the end, they all shared their Jamboards, with me, and I gave them a grade based on it. But that was a really positive adaptation, I thought, to the problem of how do we make these Linkit Cube assignments,
Ashley, what school do you work at, if you don't mind my asking?
I'm sorry, I'm at Scapa. Where are you at?
Winburn. And then I was also going to ask you, I'm wondering if I'm on the wrong Amplify Science Facebook group, because I did ask that question over the weekend about natural selection, if anybody had anything, and the question didn't get approved. What group are you referencing on Facebook? Maybe I was on the wrong one.
I only know of one. There, Tara's holding it up. Yeah, it'll have Amplify orange logo at the top.
Sorry, I'm trying to hold it still, but it's not.
Okay. And then just in the search area, I just typed natural selection, and I usually like to do that for each unit to see what other people have shared, to see if there's anything that somebody has, lived through it before me and has.
Yeah, I usually click the 3 dots in the right corner and save, and then I have a folder that says for school. So I save them in there so I can go back whenever I'm in.
Yeah, because sometimes something will pop up that day, since I teach all 3 grade levels, and I'll say, well, I'm not on that unit right now, but I want to file that away for future use. I'll save it, drop it in a folder. But you can also go back and search, and that's what I did for the natural selection, because I didn't see it when it originally popped up.
Can I ask a question for 6th grade science people on the rock transformations, the paper model of the rocks transforming? Do you guys have a good way for the students to fill in the last one where they fill in all the information? Because I've been doing it in sections, but I'd like to give them the full thing to fill in everything to kind of assess.
You mean in lesson 8 or lesson 4?
For rock transformations?
Yeah, lesson 8 or lesson 4. Do you know which one you're talking about?
What do you mean lesson 8?
The at-home lesson 8.
Oh,
You're using the full version?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're talking about this. Is this?
Yeah, but we're not. Our school doesn't want us to give papers because not everyone can print and stuff. So I've been using Pear Deck will fill in one circle. So that's easier if I'm just what's in the square when I just have one section, but it gets more complicated. So now,
one of the things in that Amplify group was an interactive notebook for rock transformations. And so I saved it, and then we've just been pulling out the slides we need. And
we're actually for them to actually type it in.
Well, so they drag, they have it there and they have to drag the things to the right place. Okay. Yeah.
Emily, we made ours into a Google slide.
That's what I've been
and then we put boxes at the bottom with all the words, and then they had to drag the boxes up.
Yeah, that's what this was.
Was that uploaded into our
I will do that right now. No, I'll do it right now.
Probably not.
Emily, I did mine in Pear Deck too, and I had to do sections. And the problem with Pear Deck, it's great for drawing or whatever, but the problem with it is when you get to a drawing slide, the slide goes down to 1/8 the size.
Yeah, I know. And then
the kids are I would love to draw on this, but I can't even see it. Yeah, I had the same issue, so I'm glad you asked that.
Emily,
Yeah, it was
I'm
fine
making
when it was just like sections, but then when all of a sudden at the end where it's like everything.
That would
Then-
explain why when we did a draw slide the other day and had the kids like highlight the sentence that you used to answer this question, like, I can't see anything. It's like, what do you mean? It looks fine on my end.
Yeah, it goes
really
to
is
like,
bad. I mean, it like seriously reduces their screen size, and there's like huge tools at the bottom for them to pick their color and, you know, scale up the size of their marker or whatever, but the actual thing they're marking up becomes very, very small.
Yeah, Emily, you can also take that model and use that as the background for Jamboard. And the kids can either insert text, or they can use the drawing tools. Like my kids were drawing like magma and arrows to show where the erosion went as they add and build in.
because I know personally for me, I struggle writing words with the little pen. Can they actually type words?
Yes,
that?
you can also type words as well. Or it's a Post-it note. You add a little Post-it note with your text. Mhm.
Emily, I'm putting that interactive notebook thing in the 6th grade science Fayette County Drive thing right now.
Thank you.
It is in the rock transformation folder in there.
I'm wondering, I talked with a teacher this afternoon who was using Jamboard to try to kind of collect beginning ideas from her students. And the problem she was having was she was wishing there was some sort of a hold feature where one or two, you know, because what was happening was one or two kids would type their Post-it and put it in, and then everybody else was just reiterating. Did any of you have a way that you've done that other than just say, like, don't send your Post-it to the Jamboard yet?
Yeah, we just had professional development on Jamboard, so it's something we've been trying to use in our breakout rooms because you can really use it for so many different things, and it works for all content areas. And so what we do, obviously, we try to build into slides like in Pear Deck or Nearpod that has all the instructions and shows the Jamboard on there, but we don't give them the link until we've actually went over the instructions and walked them through it. And you can only make, I think, 20 frames or 20 pages. But when we go into breakout rooms, like if you get sent to breakout room 4, then you're responsible for doing page or frame 4 of the Jamboard, and you just have to kind of train the kids to do that. But it lets you see in real time like who's working and who isn't, so you can jump to that room. And so we've had some success with it, but you definitely, you know, kids can get in there and edit and move things around, and you just have to, you know, basically teach them and build that process in. And so it's getting better. We do really like it for lots of different things.
Hey, Jessica, would you be willing to put a link in, and it's okay if you're not, but can you link that so we can look at how, like just any lesson where you've used Jamboard?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I've used it once before for an activity not related to science, and so I'm kind of imagining like how it could apply, but I don't have a lot of experience with it, so.
This is slightly unrelated. Jenny, I have a question for you. Did you attend the Naval Academy's Teacher STEM thing in 2019?
I absolutely
So
did.
did I. I recognized your voice and I was like, that name also looks familiar. I was like, I have to ask her.
That makes me feel like home. We just moved here this summer and like nobody ever knows me anywhere. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Welcome to Lexington.
Did anyone else apply for the NASA opportunity that David shared over Christmas break? I was curious if anybody else applied for that.
I did not. I missed it.
I honestly forgot about it.
I think it's a fantastic opportunity. I did apply for it, but it looks like it's highly selective. So who knows?
Another
They should be announcing on those in about a week, I think.
Another really good summer PD, similar to the Naval Academy, it's by the National Defense. They do a summer PD for a week long for teachers too. It's STEM, and it's really good too. And you'll go to like NASA in Huntsville, Alabama, and go to the National Defense and Missile. So, what's it called? Let me look it up real quick.
A little off topic for a second, but has anybody used Padlet in an interesting way to help get our science, like how she's using Jamboard for write and share? Like, is there any other specific routines that you found Padlet to be especially helpful with?
We did Padlet today actually for annotations because we found that our students really weren't doing a good job of annotating in the Amplify platform. And we tried just doing it through Pear Deck and that didn't work. And so I can put that in the chat as well, but we used Padlet today actually for that.
That's the one thing I think, Hannah, if I'm not mistaken, that's the one thing we've used it for as well, is annotations, or like the discussion part after annotating and reading. And then we use the discussions section in Canvas before for that as well. So I was curious about that and how, you know, what all you all have used Padlet for, but thank you for sharing that.
I did it with my 7th graders in our last science seminar. So I put up the pictures of the evidence cards, and then they could comment like underneath each of the evidence cards. And that gave them a chance to participate asynchronously, or I mean, well, it wasn't really it was still synchronously. It was just a way of participating other than just talking out loud, because a lot of my kids don't want to share video or share audio. And so it was an opportunity for, like, I told them they had to participate in the seminar and they could choose whether they added their information on Padlet or whether they added their information like by unmuting and talking. And that was, I think I got more of my kids participating than what I noticed like when we were in person. So like when we were in person and you have a science seminar, you know how you have 2 or 3 kids who dominate the conversation. I thought having the Padlet with the evidence cards up was an easy way to like let more kids share their ideas in real time and maybe not be quite as like worried about, I don't know, making a fool of themselves or saying something that they didn't, I don't know. But that worked really well. And I could, like, I had my, the Padlet displayed on the Zoom screen while we were talking. So like as kids were adding stuff, like I could type in stuff too. Well, I didn't really have much time to type in stuff because I was trying to keep track of who was saying what and making sure everybody got credit for participating. But anyways, that was just a quick, sorry. Yes, baby doll. I gotta go.
I was coming back around to Emily's question about that rock transformation things. You could use Jamboard really easily. Like I've made Jamboards where I go ahead and propagate the Post-its and then just have the kids move the Post-its where I want them. So like I teach 4 through 6, so I teach elementary too, but I've done a lot with annotating the books using Jamboard, where I just take a picture of the page that I want them to note or mark on, and then I propagate the Post-its for them and have them move them. So you could just take a picture of that model, go ahead and make the Post-its you want them to move, and then have them move them and then share that. The only thing I will say is I have not had, it's real sketchy whether Jamboard and Canvas will play together nicely. I don't know if you all have had that, where I've had one class where it's fine and another class where it won't load. So those two are not always pretty. But.
Do you all find it simple for your students to find? I've never used Jamboard. I just struggled. My students can't even find a lesson on Canvas when I have a button that says click here for today's lesson. And I mean, it's brutal every day. Where's the lesson? Where's the lesson? So I'm just wondering, is it user friendly for the students to be able to find these applications to use?
I just drop the Jamboard link in the chat.
Okay.
Then, I mean, that's how I do it. And then like Ashley said, you know, I'll have one prepared and say, your breakout room, everybody needs to make a copy of this. There's questions, annotate. A lot of I go in a different order than you guys. So I've already done ocean, atmosphere, climate this year. But you know, all those maps that they're supposed to draw all the currents and things on is super easy in Jamboard to just pop those maps and let them draw all over them, and then they don't get tiny. And then they can turn them in. And it's in their Google, I mean, it's right there in their waffle. I've had a lot of kids start using it on their own as a tool. So.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Moreover, Julie, I'm planning our ocean atmosphere and climate unit right now. Is it cool if I email you later about some of those things you just said?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like I've taught that. Ashley and I share the 6th graders. And so this will be my 3rd go round this semester teaching OAC remotely. So I've been to that rodeo a couple times, and it's getting better.
Hannah, I was just going to circle back.
One thing I'm going to throw in there right now, there on the Navigator, and I don't know if you guys have spent much time there or even looked at it. There is a section there called resources that teachers can upload things. And that might be an avenue for you all to be posting some of this stuff that would be helpful for one another. I mean, it would just go to science folks and so on. I don't know the formats necessarily that they've got. I've tinkered a little bit with it. But in your ample free time, that may be something that you may want to consider, is to include that in the resources on Navigator. And that way it's easily accessible to everybody. I mean, anybody that has a fake and log in can look at it. So just to throw it out there.
Did you just say Ampla free time? Like you made a new Amplify word, like Ampla free time?
I like Ampla free time.
Yeah, I have a lot of Ampla free time.
I have a lot of amplifiers, but I've never had Ampla free time. I like that.
Yeah, it's an ambition of mine to get some lessons on Navigator. It's just the time constraints right now. I wish I worked on it some maybe over the summer, but obviously with getting ready to teach virtually this school year, there just hasn't been time, but definitely that might be a good way for us to share. I guess maybe just because I haven't done it yet, I'm a little bit nervous about how long it's going to take and if I'm going to do it correctly, and just all the things you worry about being the first time putting something up like that for people to see. But
well, the good news is, Casey, if it's incorrect, I can take it down. But I agree with you. It's been a busy year, so we've not pushed it real hard for that reason. So, but it's always an option for the future.
Another one that I use Jamboard a lot for, sorry to keep plugging Jamboard, but the word relation routine is pretty fun on Jamboard too. I mean, I'm all about some Jamboard. I love it. I love the little Post-its. My kids love it. I mean, I don't use I'll admit that I do not have my kids go into Amplify very often, except for the assessments. Like I'm still pulling the activities from it, but I mostly make my own stuff just for grading. If I have to be in Canvas, I'd rather grade it in Canvas than go back and forth from Amplify. And I'm sorry, David, if that's breaking the rules of what I'm supposed to do. I do the assessments, but not the.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Julie. Guys, I know that you all are using Canvas for a lot of stuff. So when I look at the user reports, I don't expect to see every single kid on every single day. And when I even I worked with Amplify on that because they were like, your usage is like 50%. It's like, that's on a good day, because of that. And that doesn't bother me. I know what you guys are doing. The only thing that we're really asking are pre-assessments and post-assessments and critical junctures if you want to. Those are the big things for us because we're kind of getting to the point we can look at this year's data compared to last year's to look at some of the effects of the remote situation, as well as just trying to build that foundation of data so that if we ever start assessing again, that we can try to start making correlations between growth numbers and what we're seeing on our state tests. So, but yeah, it's don't feel bad at all if you're not having your kids go on the platform every day. That's fine. You know, I don't have a problem with that. Anything else? Everybody's going, no, it's been over an hour. I'm getting tired now.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this though. I like when we have these little powwows. So thank you.
Oh, I love these things. The ideas that you guys have and share are always amazing to me. I mean, I am so impressed with the stuff you guys say you're doing that, heck, I never would have thought of.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear all the different ways you're getting your kids involved.
It's motivating. It's very motivating. Are you all having a lot of problems with attendance?
Yes.
Okay. We, before winter break, we did half days. And since winter break, we've been doing full days. And I teach 8th grade. I'll be honest, I just put in the chat, my last hour class, I typically have about 4 students that come. It's the same 4 kiddos. And it's scaring me a little bit for them, you know, especially when we talked about high school schedules and the counselor came in through science and the kids kept going, do we have to fill these out? And I have one morning class, they grouped all of the virtual kids in one that will remain virtual if we come back in person in one class for us. And so I have one class that's 42 and they're rocking it. I mean, they show up, they participate. It's in the morning. I feel like my 2 morning classes are doing fantastic, and even my 5th hours after lunch, and I feel like that's pretty good. But the last 2, wow. I mean, it's just okay. And so we're saying 85 to 100. Yeah, we've called home. We've done home visits. We had over 9,000 PLP contacts first semester before winter break. So 90% attendance. Okay.
I probably have 3/4. If like that would be the max every day. There's some days where there's even less than that. Like today at one point there was 50% of my students in a class.
And where are you again?
Tate's Creek.
Okay.
Are you probably every day? Do you have science every day?
Yes.
No. Well, like we have an A-B schedule for Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And then since we've been back in January, they now go to every single one of their classes on Wednesdays.
Okay. So you're not teaching the same kids you're seeing 3 times a week?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, oh my God.
It's every class, every day now except Friday.
Who said that? What? You guys have every class every day?
Yeah. Yes.
So we're at Crawford, and when it was before winter break and we were doing the AB days, my 6th and 7th hour, I had good attendance. Since we've been back and we've been seeing every class every day, it just is really scaring me how little the last 2 classes are attending for their sake, you know. And we've been trying to toss around some ideas about how to get more participation, you know, parent phone calls. Like I said, we've done parent phone calls, home visits, and I mean multiple times for home visits. And then, you know, just like mass emails through Infinite Campus, and I don't know what else to try.
I don't really know that there's anything else you can try. Like I know I have probably about 90% attendance too, but then I also have 5 or 6 per class who show up, but they're really not behind that screen because they never answer any of my questions, or I'm like, hello, they're not there. I think we've done the best we can, and I hope that's not bad to say, David, but like, you're right. We text them, we call them, we home visit, we email, I don't know what else you could do, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
But you're not alone.
Do you know
Yeah.
if it's this, like, if those kids are not showing up to any of their classes, or if it's just like, are they coming to their morning classes and then they're just burnt out by the end of the day? Because that's what it sounds like. I mean, if they were coming in the winter, or if they were coming before spring break, winter, whatever break it was, it's been a long day. I don't know what day of the week it is. If they were coming before and they're coming in the morning, man, that sounds like it's a scheduling. And maybe as a school, maybe you backwards schedule 1 week. Like you go backwards through your classes next week. And maybe that, I know, I'm crazy. I come up with all kinds of crazy ideas. But if across the board, you've got like every kid's not coming to their 7th and 8th hour class, they need those classes. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
I know
think a
that's
lot
crazy.
of it, Beth, for you guys is a stamina issue, because the kids were used to half days last semester. That's where their stamina level is. So they're very much exhausted by those last couple hours. So you're seeing it kind of fall off. And Tara and all you guys, I know you're doing the best you can do. Trust me. I see it every single day, and never for a minute would I ever judge and think you could do more, because I don't have an answer for you. It is a district-wide issue, and it's a district-wide concern. That's why they're making plans now to have things available this summer. The one thing that I will say is that if any student in this district wants an education, they will get an education. Whether it's remote or not, doesn't matter. You know, I'm a firm believer in that. It's the other barriers that we're trying to have to overcome that are so challenging. Whether it's support in the home, or we have a number of kids now that mom and dads are going back to work. They're taking care of siblings. And I'm talking 10 and 12-year-olds are taking care of siblings, which is scary to me, but that's our reality. So yeah, just keep on trying. And Catherine, I love the idea of flipping the schedule for a week. Lord have mercy. Our kids struggle on what day it is. Martin Luther King Day blew their mind. It's like, what?
I will say that years ago when I taught 6th grade, we actually would rotate what class hour we had kids every 9 weeks. And we thought that would be really hard for kids to, deal with. And our purpose in it was just what you were saying. In the afternoons, they would get tired. And when we go to team meetings, we were like, that kid's an animal for you because they're perfect for me. And then when we would trade and have them the different class hour, we would see the animal. I never thought about that, but
You just make it a whole theme. I mean, you gotta play into the theme, and it's like backwards week or something like that, where you do everything backwards, and you make it a big deal on your like school social media, and you just have, okay, we're gonna have backwards week next week, and all their classes go backwards, and you hype it up as this big thing, and then I don't know, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
And see if it would happen. Give Monday to get
how could it be worse than the current?
We have one kid that he's dyslexic and ESL, and the first semester it took us the first 9 weeks to get him to coming to class at the right time, and he was coming. He really was trying. He'd show up at the wrong class hour and things like that. And so then he was one of the kids that they changed his schedule for second semester. And he shows up every day in his old schedule for me, but
so that's
team, and he's at least going to everyone's class.
Beth, I have kids who I've sent multiple emails to. You have me at this time on this day, and it hasn't changed since August, and they're still showing up at the wrong class period.
Yes. But on a sweet note, you guys, after I had the COVID vaccine, the next day I had a headache that was unbelievable. And when I got to 7th hour, sometimes if I don't have something ready, like a formal way of asking them questions, I'll ask, of course, in the chat box, and I take snapshots of their answers, but I'll type now. When I finish asking them a question and they fill all their answers in, then I'll type now, or new, I'm sorry. so that I know where to start looking on the chat box for their answers. And I'll call them out. So-and-so, you don't have an answer in. And my head was killing me and I kept forgetting to type new. And one of the students started doing it for me for every question. And I was so thankful for her. I sent her a Chick-fil-A card. I just, by 7th hour, I just kind of lost my momentum. And that's not a regular thing. It was just because of the vaccine, and it only bothered me that one day. But yeah, some of the things y'all are mentioning here, I've got a lot of things written down, highlighted that I didn't know about. The crash course and Crash Junior, I mean, just several things. So it's always good to get resources.
Anything else from anybody? Y'all have been so informative. I feel like my head's swollen. I learned a lot tonight. Thank you very much. I don't have anything else. Patty, do you have anything else?
No, I don't think so. Thank you, guys. It was great to see your
Awesome.
faces and
So if there's anything
your
that Patty and I
emojis
can do for you, by all means, please reach out to us and reach out to one another. You guys are so helpful, so willing to share. I'm just so impressed. So certainly do appreciate that.
David, I sent you a chat question that doesn't apply to anybody else, but can you tell me when the intermediate huddle is? Because I keep seeing when the middle school one is, I keep seeing when the K2 one is, and I have not gone to a single 4 or 5 huddle this year because I keep missing them.
We haven't scheduled
yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
perfect.
did one in December, not long before school was out.
Okay.
So that'll be up next.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade individuals coming out. But we
Okay.
don't have any huddles coming up yet.
There's 4th and 5th grade ones coming up, or
3rd, 4th, and 5th on
Yeah,
progress
individuals.
build and formative assessments.
okay. I'll
Yeah, I
look.
just sent those out this week or this morning, actually.
Oh, okay. I haven't read my email today. Okay.
That's fine. That's fine.
Sounds
Not a
good.
problem.
Snow day tomorrow. Woo!
Virtual snow day. Woohoo!
Before Christmas, there were a bunch of districts in the Northeast that actually did that. And
Yeah. I'm from upstate New York and they all had a snow day yesterday because of the amount of snow that they had. They're like, we'll just keep in the spirit. And I'm just like, I'm really jealous.
That's funny.
Kathleen, what part of New York? My husband's from upstate New York.
I'm just west of Albany in a town called Amsterdam.
Okay, he grew up in Endicott, so.
Okay. I went to college out in Buffalo, so I know some people from out there.
Yeah.
Cool. And then I know Jenny.
Thanks again for making me feel welcome.
You're very welcome. And it was like, I can't believe I recognized your voice.
I know, I'm a little worried about that. Hopefully it was like a good memory, not a bad one.
No, it was good. It was good. I still have my little monkey.
I do too, but I think it was on a picture now that you say that on my